Welcome to the American Indian and Alaska Native Behavioral Health webinar series, presented by the National American Indian and Alaska Native Addiction Technology Transfer Services. Today's webinar is presented by Dr. Kamala Venner. Dr. Venner is an assistant professor in the Department of Psychology and a research assistant professor at the Center on Alcoholism, Substance Abuse, and Addictions at the University of New Mexico. She's currently working on multiple projects focusing on improving the substance abuse-related health disparities for American Indians and Alaska Natives, including a study on screening and interventions. Thank you so much for joining us today, Dr. Venner, and I will pass things over to you at this time.
Thank you so much, Kate. You've been so helpful this whole time, and thank you for the lovely introduction. I noticed that sometimes Kate's audio is cutting in and out, so I'm hopeful that that's not going to happen with me. Just let me know. I was looking at the poll, and it looks like we've got a variety of exposure to motivational interviewing before, although so far about 1/3 of you, this is your first exposure. So just think of this as a brief overview. We're going to be going pretty quickly to try to get you a sense of the overall I guess what motivational interviewing is. It's generally taught in a 2-day workshop, and the best way to really learn it is to have follow-up sessions where someone is listening to your MI work and coding it and giving you feedback. So it takes a while, but it is learnable, and it's very helpful in certain situations. So I'll be interested to hear what you guys think and whether you think this will be helpful for your populations. Oh, that little polar bear is a beaded necklace that my dear late grandmother made for me when I was maybe in middle school, I think. So I've had it for a very long time and just thought I would share that with you. So today I'm hoping we'll go over the MI definitions and the key concept of ambivalence. Kate's going to help me with a persuasion exercise. Then we'll go over the spirit of MI, cultural considerations, how to resist the writing reflex, what is change talk, a tiny bit on open questions and reflections, a little example of snatching change talk from the jaws of ambivalence. You'll see what that's about. And then Kate will help me again on the taste of MI, and then we'll be done for today. So I am from Alaska, from the Athabascan tribe, from the Otna region. It's kind of the dark blue on the right-hand edge under the JUN area, but I was born in Anchorage, which is more in the Cook Inlet region. And on the right there is the Copper River, so if any of you like salmon, the Copper River salmon come from that river that runs right by my mom's village, where she grew up for the first 10 years of her life. So what are we here to talk about today? Motivational interviewing, and the 3rd edition just came out in 2013. And here's some more recent pictures of Bill Miller and Steve Rolnick, the authors and partners in crime. So I thought I would start with the first 3 definitions of MI, and I'm going to look, oh dear, I'm coming in and out and my face is directly toward my computer, so I don't know what that's about. I'm very sorry. I wonder if I talk a little louder, if that will help. Let me know. And please ask any questions as we go along so that I can be sure to answer any of your questions. Sounds fuzzy. That is not good. Kate?
I'm guessing that the cutting in and out might have been that we both had our microphones on. So yeah, I think the suggestion that just came in, maybe step back a little from the microphone, I think that might help your sound. And then as long as I keep myself muted while you're doing your presentation, that might help with a little bit of the cutting back and forth between our 2 microphones.
Okay, all right. I'm moving back, thank you.
Thank you to everyone. This will help it.
Okay, thanks, Kate. All right, she's muted now. Okay, so continue letting me know, because it's a bummer if you can't really hear me or understand, so that's not fun for a whole hour. All right, so I thought I would start with the definition of motivational interviewing, and I'm going to give you 3 different definitions in line with the 3rd edition of the book. So each of these definitions have 3 essential elements to them. Each definition emphasizes that this is a conversation about change, and when motivational interviewing has been translated into something like 30-something different languages, they usually call it motivational conversations, and that seems to translate better. And so now Bill Miller says he would have liked to name it that. So when people get nervous about whether they should use MI or they don't do counseling, I like to remind them that they can have a conversation. And so if you think about it as a 2-way conversation that goes back and forth, that'll be beautiful. The second piece is that it's collaborative. So this means that you're working in partnership with your client or relative. I'm not sure what you'd like to refer to the people you work with as. Community member. And then finally, it's evocative. So I'm going to be going over these in some other slides. Evocative means you're drawing information from the person rather than trying to push it in. So the first definition is the most basic and simple, and it speaks to what is the purpose of MI. Motivational interviewing is a collaborative conversation style for strengthening a person's own motivation and commitment to change. And this is from the newest book. So it is a time to help someone work on their own motivation, but we help them strengthen it through a certain conversational style that's very particular to motivational interviewing. The next definition speaks to probably all of you, the practitioners. And this answers the question, why would I want to learn MI and how would I use it? So this definition is, motivational interviewing is a person-centered counseling style. So that's where you're listening deeply, you're really trying to understand that person's perspective. So how do they see the issue, whether it's substance use or diabetes management? How much of a problem do they think it is? What do they like about it? What don't they like about it? And what are their ideas for making any changes if they decide to? So the person-centered is that we're not doing the same thing with every person, but very individualized and really trying to understand how they see things. And motivational interviewing is best used for the common problem of ambivalence about change, which we'll get to very shortly. And finally, the most complex definition is that motivational interviewing is a collaborative, goal-oriented style of communication. So this is the first time we've talked about goals. And so you can only do motivational interviewing if you have a goal in mind, like a behavioral health goal, like reducing substance use, improving exercise, diet, things that everybody could agree that a certain direction is right. So it's a goal-oriented style of communication with particular attention to the language of change. And that's why I threw in a few slides about the language of change, because that seems to be key. And so we want you to know that you're making your conversation to encourage more language around change from your clients. MI is designed to strengthen personal motivation for and commitment to a specific goal by drawing out and exploring a person's own reasons for change within an atmosphere of acceptance and compassion. So compassion is a new word, which we will be talking about shortly. So that's MI in a nutshell, and you can see it's pretty full of ideas, and it really includes all of these ideas to make it motivational interviewing. So what is this important concept called ambivalence? So this is a Norman Rockwell painting that I like, and if you look there, you can see this little boy is up on a high dive. So usually I will ask people, and I don't know if you can type in really quickly, what do you think motivated this little boy to get up on the high dive? Why do people like to do things like that? You know, bungee jump, parasail. What would be some of the reasons he got up there? To impress other people. Very good, Felicia. Curiosity, excitement, thrill-seeking. You guys are good. Maybe just a personal challenge, right? Yeah, someone challenged him. Look at that. To prove his courage. Awesome. So he had lots of reasons to get up there. To get high. Very good, Roger. So he had a lot of reasons to get up there, and yet he has not jumped off. So then if you don't mind putting a few little answers in, why has he stayed up there? Why has he not jumped off the high dive? Fear, scared, that's right. Once you get up there, it looks maybe a lot further down to the bottom. Let me see if I can read a few more. He's committed to, I can't read Felicia's all the way. Oh, there we go. He's committed to stay, but he's afraid. His ability to see his own success. Interesting. So the point of this is that ambivalence is the normal state of being when we want to do something and we don't want to do it. So this little boy both wants to get up there and jump off the high dive for whatever his reasons are, and we would try to evoke those from him rather than just only guessing. And he also has reasons he does not want to jump, and so the result is he is stuck. So that is the state of ambivalence. And I don't know if any of you have experienced this in your life where you both want to go to the gym and you don't want to go to the gym. You both want to, reduce trans fat, and we don't want to reduce trans fat because it's so yummy. So we all seem to face these experiences where we get kind of stuck. And this is where, all the time, very yummy. This is where motivational interviewing is perfect. Now, if a little guy is running up there and jumping off the diving board, it's not like we need to motivate him to jump off. He's already going. So that is a place where you wouldn't necessarily need to use motivational interviewing in its fullest form. But it's when people are stuck and having trouble, maybe making some changes and then falling back, that's when it's really helpful. Okay, so ambivalence, keep that in mind. And it can come up at any time. You may notice it at the beginning of therapy. You may notice it once you set some goals and people are maybe starting to do the goals but then not doing them or just having trouble complying with treatment. Ambivalence might have snuck back in there and might need to be explored some more. So it's not necessarily a one-time thing. We're constantly looking out for it. So the dynamics of ambivalence, like I said, they like what they're doing and they don't like some things about it. So what happens is if you push for change when somebody's ambivalent, and we were there saying all the reasons why the little boy should jump off the high dive, it'll be fine, you'll be fine, nobody's getting hurt, I'll be right here, I'll help you. Then what happens is that he pushes back against change and says all the reasons why he doesn't want to go off. No, I'm scared. What if I make a fool of myself? What if I lose my shorts? Or whatever it is that's going through his mind. Then the problem with that is that he's saying the reasons not to change, and that actually predicts not changing. So I hope you got that. When we create a conversation where we're arguing for change and then our client's arguing against change, that sets them up to not change. So we want to really be aware, like, oh, maybe they're being ambivalent. Because they might be saying 1 minute, yes, I want to change. And so you start moving towards planning, and then you start hearing all the reasons why they can't do it. And then you go, oh, okay, so they need to think about this some more. And sometimes just reflecting both sides. Oh, I get it. You're a little stuck because there's some things you still like about alcohol or drugs, and there's some things that you don't like. And that can free them up to continue on with change talk. So Recognizing ambivalence is important, and it was a key concept for motivational interviewing, because so many times we start out in action, we're ready to plan, and people are still kind of considering and contemplating whether they have a problem or not, and whether they want to do anything about it at this time. All right, so here's where Kate comes in to help me with a little conversation. This one is on persuasion, so if I were doing a training, I would ask you two to pair up, and one of you would be reading the script, being sort of the helper or listener, and then the other person is simply talking about their own veggie intake. So I'm hoping that Kate's going to unmute her. There we go. Ready, Kate?
I'm ready.
Okay, so I'd like everyone to kind of pay attention to what this kind of conversation, how it goes, and how you think Kate's reacting, and we'll ask Kate as well. All right, so Kate, thanks for agreeing to talk about your vegetable intake. First of all, how many vegetables do you eat a day?
I'd say I really try to get at least 2 to 3 vegetables a day. That's probably where I am right now.
Okay. Well, you should be eating 4 to 5 servings each day if you expect to be healthy.
Yeah, I'm trying to work up to that. It's a little hard. I've had bad eating habits in the past, so I'm trying to get to that place. But yeah, it definitely takes work.
Well, all you have to do is add some veggies to each meal. I wonder, have you tried those little bags of carrots?
Yeah, I pack some of those kind of things in my lunch sometimes, but I just don't always, I'm not always successful in actually eating them. Sometimes I plan, but I just don't well. So.
Okay. Well, why don't you try adding 1 serving each day?
Yeah, I think that would be good. I think that's kind of the goal I've set, but I just I don't always make it there. So.
Oh, okay. Well, since Kate's being nice, it'd be hard to say this last part, but there would be nothing I could do unless she's ready to get healthy, because she actually sounds like she's trying to get healthy, but she's working on this. So I see one person commented that I'm sounding pushy. Any comments on how you think Kate might respond to this, or other people would respond to this if I was talking to you or other folks about your vegetable intake? Any feelings that might come up? Somebody's feeling like I'm a slacker. I probably feel annoyed, exactly. Some say it's too expensive to buy. I'm guessing the fresh fruits. Feeling guilty, yes, lots of guilt would come up. It would increase ambivalence, absolutely. Feeling frustrated, I know what to do, but how do I get there? Automatically pushing back. Yep, working with adolescents is a good place to get some defensive responses. So excellent. So does that kind of resonate, Kate?
Yeah, I think that feels very true of just that experience of talking about something that it's like I know I should do it, but it's hard to actually make the step to doing what I'm supposed to do and what I know I'm supposed to want to do, but I don't really want to do it.
Well, I have that same experience with those carrots, so I recommend trying something else. Thank you so much, Kate. So a lot of times, especially if we're talking about something a little bit more, let's see, Julia said she would be feeling cornered by my habits, absolutely, and feeling very stuck again. So a lot of times when people are exposed to this sort of persuasive style, and it's something more personal or touchy, like potentially addictions or eating habits, they might get angry. Somebody said annoyed, which is very good, agitated. They might feel oppositional, like you said, pushing back. They might feel like discounting me. They might get defensive. They might feel like justifying their behavior. I know, I try, but it's expensive or whatever. I doubt she was feeling understood. I'm pretty sure she wouldn't be feeling like she was heard. She might feel helpless, ashamed. Somebody talked about guilt, disengaged, not coming back, uncomfortable, afraid. So these are not very fun things to feel, and so we'll invite Kate back near the end to do a little different kind of conversation. So let's talk a little bit about the spirit and style of motivational interviewing. I just like to say that motivational interviewing is not a technique for tricking people into doing what they do not want to do. So sometimes we have such good intentions, and we want people to have a good life, and we see train wrecks coming, but it's not a way to trick them into behaving better. It's much more respectful than that. And we start with the style of MI because if you don't capture the spirit of MI, then just using the techniques will not be considered MI. So in the 2-day training, we spend almost a whole morning talking about the spirit of MI. And if there's any Seinfeld fans out there, this is Elaine in her wonderful dancing, where she doesn't quite get it, right? She's kind of jerky and just, it's strange. And so I think if you don't have the spirit of MI, you might look like Elaine dancing, which I think is hysterical, but not MI. All right, so what is the spirit of MI? In the newest edition, the 3rd edition of Motivational Interviewing, they have a new acronym and some new aspects of trying to explain the spirit of MI more clearly. So this is a painting of Mount Rainier I found on the web from when I was up there earlier in the spring. So if you notice, there's an acronym there. Each of the letters that begin these words spell out the word PACE, and Bill and Steve Rolnick love acronyms. So before it was collaboration, but now it's partnership. Acceptance, before it was more a focus on autonomy, but you'll see that autonomy is rolled into acceptance. Compassion is brand new in the 3rd edition, and evocation has always been there. Oops, I keep pushing the wrong key. Okay, partnership. So there's different kind of dances, but people say that when you're using MI and you're forming a nice partnership with your client or a relative, then you should look like you're dancing. You're moving together, you're helping each other. If you like Dancing with the Stars, it might be kind of like that. You're each working together to express the dance. So it's active collaboration, and there's ways for you to actively invite your client to collaborate with you. And the more active they are, the more likely they are to change and continue working even when they're not with you in your office or in their home. It's really sharing power. So everything you can do to minimize power differentials. So it's not emphasizing that we're the expert and you're not. It might be we're an expert in certain things and you're the expert on your life, so that's why we have to work together to come to the best solutions for you. It's more about exploration than persuasion, and it's really about seeing the world through the client's eyes rather than pushing our view onto the client. And I think that's part of why this seems to be so cross-culturally accepted. I think trainers represent, between the trainers and the books that are translated, there's something like 70-something different languages represented. So it's really going around the world because I think we're not trying to push ideas onto people, we're trying to pull out ideas that are congruent for them and make sense for them. Acceptance now contains 4A words or concepts. Absolute worth, and so this is kind of going back to the client-centered piece, that every single person has absolute worth no matter what they've done. So we might not like what they've done, but as a person, a human being, they have absolute worth. And so using MI, we're coming into the relationship with them in that manner. Accurate empathy is also from the client-centered tradition, but it doesn't mean like I feel sad if they feel sad. It more means I really am understanding their perspective, and I can help, and I let them know by giving reflections and letting them know that I'm hearing them. So it's really being accurate and understanding and helping them to have a deeper understanding of their experiences, their thoughts, their motivations. Autonomy support is there. That used to be super emphasized, and that just means that each person has the right to make their own decisions, and they will. And sometimes emphasizing to them that it's up to them helps reduce what used to be called resistance. Now in motivational interviewing, we're moving away from that. More to discord, more about the relationship and interaction. And then the final A is affirmation. And for those of you that have had MI training before, you know that's one of the micro skills in ORS. And so the affirmation is affirming the client in small ways. Thanks for coming. I know it's hard to get here. I know you're busy or transportation is difficult or whatnot. To thanks for sharing something very, close to their heart. Thanks for being honest. To really trying to understand some deep aspects about their personality. Like, you are a person of integrity, or you are a person that perseveres. You are like a warrior. So that's our A of PACE. Here's our autonomy. Compassion is the newest aspect that they've written down now. I think it's always been there. But I think Bill had met a lot of salespeople and had read some books in sales, and they would say, oh, we have the same thing that you're doing. We collaborate with people, we emphasize their autonomy to make their decisions, and we evoke things from them, like what kind of car, what kind of engine, what kind of color, what's price range. But in the end, you might think that some salespeople are kind of out to make a buck, and so they might be thinking more about their own benefit rather than the client's benefit. So I think adding in compassion means that your heart's in the right place and you're actively promoting the client's welfare. So that's not about us, it's about them. So that's where compassion is at this time. And then finally, evocation. This is the belief, client-centered, that people already have within them much of what is needed. So in MI, we focus on and understand each person's strengths. It's very empowering and affirming. And we acknowledge that they already have motivations within them, they already have knowledge, and they already have resources. So that's why we would want to draw those out rather than trying to push things in and have a deficit model. We have an empowerment model that those things are already within people, and we just need to ask the right questions, give the right reflections, and try to invite those to come out. And this is also focusing on understanding their perspective and their wisdom. So PACE is the spirit of MI. And I'd like to turn now, see how we're going? It's like 11:30, I think we're doing okay, to a little bit about American Indian Alaska Native culture. And I know you all are probably experts on this. And again, please ask any questions as we go along. This is probably an Inuit blanket toss. So it's I believe seal hides that they sew together, and then they come together as a community that sort of represents collectivism and doing things together, and also in this case having fun. So people will vary, right? Not all Indians are the same, and so some different things to look into might be their cultural identity. How much are they identifying with their particular tribe or tribes? How important is that to them? That'll be important to know. If it's not that important, then that might suggest some other things, or we could see if that would be something that they would like to make some changes in. Acculturation is that stress that comes from two cultures coming together and maybe being influenced, or in terms of U.S. mainstream culture, feeling stressed because it's everywhere, and there are some clashes between mainstream culture and American Indian culture in terms of values and I guess all kinds of things. Looking at traditional behaviors, are they active in traditional behaviors or not? Are they participating or contributing to traditional ceremonies? Are they practicing traditional spirituality? What religions might they be part of? Is there some, going back and forth of some Christian, Catholic religions and Native spirituality? What's going on for them? And then finally, the concept of colonization and historical trauma, which is Karina Walter's big area. But just the fact that a lot of the behavioral health problems we might be experiencing may be based in a lot of colonization, being moved around, not being allowed to speak our language, not being able to practice our spiritual practices, a lot of oppression and discrimination. So there's some things that are not just about the individual, but social forces that might be impacting health and behavioral health. So the tripartite model is something I like to just go over briefly. Certainly in psychology, we are better at looking at universals and individual level. So this kind of wisdom comes from several different cultures, I think. But there's a belief that every person is in some ways like all other people. So there's some universals to the human experience. We have very, similar biology, common experiences. So there's some things that we can apply to universal folks, and that's what we like to do in psychology. In some ways, we're like some other people, and that's this group or cultural level. So looking at people might group together with other people based on culture or ethnicity, race, gender, social class, sexual orientation, religion, what else? So you kind of get the idea. So belonging to a group can be a major part of a person's identity, and if it is, then it might be important to check into how important is that, and how might that be a strength for coping with whatever problem that they've come to us with. And also looking for major resources and supports and strengths and help. And then finally, every person is like no other person. So individuals are unique. So this is that effort not to stereotype people, that there's often more differences within a group, like American Indian and Alaska Natives, than between groups, between American Indians, Alaska Natives, and non-Hispanic white. So really thinking about how complex people are. We have our individual differences, we have some group identities that might be really important, and then we have some universal human experiences. So how come this is important? Because when we're using motivational interviewing, we might want to use this evoking on the group level. So checking in with people, how salient is their group identity? How salient is it? How important is it to them that they're American Indian or Alaska Native? Or both, maybe. How important is it to them, you can go on and on with their sexual orientation. Is that a really big part of who they are, or that's just a piece of who they are? So checking in with people, how important is this to you? And so the more important that group identity is, it may be more important to really consciously pay attention to cultural identity and see if that's instrumental for engaging folks and retaining folks in treatment and their outcome. So don't have much time to talk about today how we exactly do that, but there's lots of measures, or at least just open-ended questions you can ask people about their cultural identity. When they introduce themselves, do they introduce themselves by their clans or not? It might be a clue. If you introduce yourself using your clans, that might encourage them to do the same. We're just publishing a paper from my lab on a spirituality measure, so we think it's really important to measure spirituality, and spirituality often is not as strong at the beginning of a substance abuse treatment as it is afterwards and in the follow-up. So it's really nice to see those kinds of changes as well, and not just pay attention to substance use. Discrimination can also be another social force that's impacting people and increasing stress levels, and they may be using to cope, or it might be impacting depression or anxiety. So it's looking for other forces, not just that something's wrong with that person, but maybe there's something wrong in their work environment, in their, neighborhood, in their culture, where they might be experiencing discrimination. So I don't know how much this will apply to any of you all, but I think it's particularly important to adapt MI if the setting doesn't seem welcoming. So if you're not on tribal property and there's no signs of American Indian, Alaska Native culture in the building, then that might make people wonder, is this a place that I can share or be understood? Yes, okay, so I see Katrina was asking, can I share the spirituality scale? Absolutely. Let's see, I suppose I can email that to Kate, maybe, and Kate can help me with that. We're calling it right now the Native American Spirituality Scale, and we're just revising it and resubmitting it, so hopefully it'll be coming out soon. Let me see here. Okay, so also this setting may not seem welcoming if there's no American Indian Alaska Native providers, so that might be a time to really make some extra efforts. Okay, yeah, so in a setting that doesn't seem welcoming, a person may feel uncomfortable talking about culture and not be sure if anyone would understand them, so adaptations may make MI make more sense. So help the person connect their motivations to their culture. How much is your substance use fitting in with your cultural beliefs, with your spirituality, with your family, with your major values? And how can you use those strengths from your culture and spirituality to help you move towards change if that's what you decide to do? So some adaptations are just changing the setting. How do you decorate your office? How do you decorate the waiting room? Having more American Indian Alaska Native staff for sure. What kind of questions do you ask about? Do you ask about culture? Do you ask about cultural identity? Do you ask about discrimination? Do you ask about spirituality in a deep level so that you can figure out, are they having a blend of different religions? Do they have one? Do they have another? Is that something they'd like to work on? And then asking open-ended questions about culture, and when you reflect back, including culture. So how do they understand their problem? And we'll come touch base on this in a little while. And do they have any interest in traditional healing? I haven't mentioned that yet, as an adjunct as well. Okay, so we're getting ready to watch a little 1 minute, 41 second video. And this has to do with that concept of ambivalence, and for us to resist the writing reflex. So in motivational interviewing, the writing reflex is our natural instinct, and what's that called when you just automatically do something, like impulse, to fix things. So if a little ship were, falling over, you would just automatically reach down and try to put it right, put it back up so that it doesn't fall over. So the idea here for motivational interviewing is, I don't want to rush in and provide solutions for you. So even though we often come into these helping fields because we do want to help people, we do want to fix problems, the problem is the effect. So just like in my little persuasion exercise with Kate, usually the natural response is to resist persuasion and argue back. So especially if they're ambivalent, if we argue for change, they argue against it. And in MI, the client needs to voice the reasons for change because that actually ends up predicting change. So we want to really pay attention to our own writing reflex and stop ourselves from giving advice right away and providing solutions because that more empowers us and not so much our clients. So just to give you a little sense of resisting the writing reflex, I'm going to go ahead and show the video now, and so I believe Kate said you need to exit out of full screen if you're in full screen so you can see the video. So I want to make sure people are ready because it's only 1 minute and 41 seconds. And that's about all I know to say, so I'm going to go ahead and push play. And let us know if you can see it.
It's just, there's all this pressure, you know? And sometimes it feels like it's right up on me. And I can just feel it, like literally feel it in my head. And it's relentless. And I don't know if it's going to stop. I mean, that's the thing that scares me the most, is that I don't know if it's ever going to stop.
You do have a nail in your head.
It is not about the nail.
Are you sure? Because, I mean, I'll bet if we got that out of there.
Stop trying to fix it.
No, I'm not trying to fix it. I'm just pointing out that maybe the nail is causing...
You always do this. You always try to fix things when what I really need is for you to just listen.
See, I don't think that is what you need. I think what you need is to get the nail
See, you're not even listening now.
Okay, fine. I will listen. Fine.
It's just... Sometimes it's like there's this achy... I don't know what it is. And I'm not sleeping very well at all. And all my sweaters are snagged. I mean, all of them.
That sounds really hard.
Ow!
Come on, if you would just...
Don't...
So I hope that little amusing video will ring a bell with you and remind us that when we just jump in and try to provide solutions, people don't often want that. And I think there's a lot of sayings about, maybe even from Mark Twain, that advice is really something best for other people, right? We don't want it unless we ask for it. So when you're using motivational interviewing and you're doing that, we're going to resist the writing reflex. It doesn't mean you can never give advice, but we have different ideas about how to do that in a motivationally consistent way. All right. Okay, so what is this thing called change talk? Well, the idea is that research has shown that when you do motivational interviewing, it leads the client to talk about their desires to change, their ability to change, their reasons to change, and their need to change. And those are what we're talking about as change talk, along with commitment language. So originally, it was thought that the change talk, the desirability, reasons and need would lead to commitment language to make a change, and then they would actually change later on. And when they did some research transcribing therapy sessions, they actually found that to be true. And luckily, they don't have to say commitment language in your session, but because this is so important, ability language has been shown to predict change, desire and reasons have been shown to predict later behavioral changes in our clients. So since this is such an important concept, we'd like to talk about it a little bit. And here we have another acronym for recognizing change talk, which is DARN, CAT. And that's why there's a little kitty on there. So we've mentioned the desire, ability, reasons, need, and commitment to change. And then activating is preparing. What might I do? Kind of wondering about it. And then taking steps is actually doing something towards change. So different types of change talk you might hear might sound like this. I want to change, and that would be desire language. I can change. Feeling like they can successfully make a change is important. I have good reasons to change. And so if they tell you those, that would be change talk. A need to change is kind of like a reason that's more urgent, so it's more intense. I will change is that commitment language, and so you can invite that by an open-ended question. What do you think you'll do? I see this as a problem. I'm wondering how to make the change. That's kind of the activating language. And then I'm taking steps towards change. So here's a visual, in case you like visuals better than little words. So there's this little hill here, and the idea is that as you're working with folks that might be in pre-contemplation or contemplation, that's where you're working on getting the preparatory change talk. Desire to change, ability to make a successful change, their reasons for change, and their level of need. And then hopefully at the tip top they make a commitment to change, and then they're going to be mobilizing change talk till they get to the action phase. So that would be their activating and wondering and planning and making decisions, and then actually, hopefully, making some changes. So motivational interviewing, a lot of that really comes in on the upward slope of the preparatory change talk, because that contemplation down there is similar to ambivalence, and that's where motivational interviewing is very helpful. Analogy of a marriage is another way to kind of remember this, and I'm just going to zip through this. You always get asked the question at the time of the marriage, and do you want the answer to be desire language? I want to make this commitment. Not really enough. How about ability language? I'm sure I can make this commitment. So they're able to, still not satisfying. I have good reasons to make this commitment. They might tell you them, but that's not what you're wanting to hear up there. I really need to make this commitment. So that would be need language. And then finally, I promise to love and honor him or her. And that would be the commitment language. Fortunately, just a fun way to try to get this idea in your head, so you're listening for all types of change language, because it's important to change. We want to draw it out. We want to reinforce it. Notice we have about 10 minutes left. So these processes are also new to the 3rd edition of MI, and we're just going to have time to talk a little bit about engaging. So that's engaging is the first piece that you'll see in all kinds of behavioral health interventions. You have to have a relationship before you can move on. Focusing is that they have a goal, and you have to have a goal for change that that you would be trying to help the client talk themselves into that positive change. So it's not for ethical dilemmas, MI, although they are changing to figure out how to not influence people when it is an ethical dilemma. And then there's that evoking, which is really the heart of MI, and then planning only if they're ready to make the plan and they're making a commitment. Otherwise, they found if you plan too soon, it sets people back. So in this engaging process, you just open the conversation, and here's where I talk a little bit about if you're Native, you might share your tribe and clans, and but even if you're not, you can say how long you've been in the community, who you know, how committed you've been, something about you, maybe whether you're a parent or not, something that makes you able to be relatable. And then you invite the client to introduce themselves, of course, and you might ask some questions if they're Native about their heritage, where they're born, where they're from, what their first language was, things like that. So really you're just trying to set the stage that you want to have conversations with them, you want it to go back and forth. And so if you have a place where you have to ask a million questions for intake, even if you could just connect with them for 5 or 10 minutes first, it would be awesome, and I think it would increase your retention rates. People don't get a lot out of just doing a lot of paperwork, and so it makes it harder for them to be motivated to come back. So open-ended questions are important in MI, and these ones you can look at, and we ask, when did you last drink or use? And then we wonder, is that an open or closed question? So you might notice that that one is closed because the answer would be something very short. Well, I just drank yesterday, or I just used over the weekend. But what do you like about alcohol is open and invites a conversation. I'm going to zip through this because we're getting to 8 minutes. So I included in here some open-ended questions you might ask around culture. So what do you think caused this problem? Because in cognitive behavioral therapy, we have certain models of why we think people have depression or anxiety or alcohol and drug problems, but maybe the person thinks about it very differently. Maybe it's a spiritual malady or something happened to them that got them out of balance. So I think it's really worth it to ask people what they think caused the problem to make sure that how you're going to offer treatment fits in with that, or you help them find a place that fits better with their ways of thinking, if it makes sense. Asking what do they think is the best way to improve or heal from this problem, and seeing if what you have to offer makes sense to them. or they might need some additional traditional healing. How might any stressors such as poverty or discrimination affect your health? So inviting them to consider other aspects rather than it's a deficit or a problem within them only. How important is spirituality to you? How might spirituality affect your health? How might spirituality help you with this problem if it is important for them? How is this problem affecting your family? How might your family support you? So you get the idea that it's constantly open and trying to draw ideas and perspectives from our clients in a very respectful way. Reflections. Now, we've just talked about open-ended questions. We don't have time to go over reflections in detail, but Bill Miller will say, if you can't do a reflection, you can't do motivational interviewing. So it's just such a fundamental skill for motivational interviewing. And hopefully you're not just reflecting the simple words that people are saying, but really trying to get underneath for the underlying meaning. Because otherwise you're going to get annoyed and your clients are going to get annoyed if you just repeat their words, and then you'll be thinking, these reflections are no good. But they can be better as long as you use more complex than simple. So one way to think about it is simple reflections is simply repeating. So if someone says, I'm angry with my mom, then you just repeat it. You're angry with your mom in a statement form. If you raise your voice at the end and say you're angry with your mom, then that's actually still a question and you don't get any credit for a reflection. So that's no fun. Just changing one little word like you're upset with your mom would be a synonym. The complex ones are where the momentum comes from. So adding some sort of meaning, this is where you have to make a guess. What would I feel like? What based on the client might be happening? So if you know something about them, you could paraphrase with, you wish your mom would believe in you, if that would make sense. You can add meaning like, it seems like your mom's being unfair. And this is just to try to understand their perspective and help them to continue talking and exploring. You can add feeling. Part of you is also hurt. So a lot of times with anger, there's something else underneath there as well. And metaphors are wonderful. If you're great at metaphors, that's wonderful. Bill Miller loves them. So you could say, gosh, it feels like a volcano exploding. And if that's capturing how angry they are. I was going to say something. A very good reflection actually functions as if it were an open-ended question because it's an invitation for the person to continue speaking. Using a sentence statement format tends to convey more acceptance, whereas a question can kind of make a person feel like I have to justify why I'm angry with my mom. But if you just say, you're angry with your mom, that just sounds so accepting, and it can say yes and tell you more about it. That's a good reflection. So in our last 4 minutes, I wanted to help you think about the snatching change talk from the jaws of ambivalence. I think we're just going to be able to go over one slide here because I want to do the little taste of MI. But this is the notion that change talk often comes intertwined with sustained talk. And so your job is to pick out the change talk because that invites the person to talk about change instead of the ambivalence. So if a client were to say, I really don't want to stop smoking, but I know that I should. I've tried before and it's really hard. If you respond to, you really don't want to quit, you get credit for a reflection, but that invites the person to talk about what? Why they don't want to quit. And that's not change talk. We call that sustained talk. That is reasons they want to stay the same. If you said it's pretty clear to you that you ought to quit, then you're picking up on that little bit of change talk that was in there. I know that I should. It's pretty clear to you that you ought to quit. And that invites them to talk more about those feelings. So how you create the conversation, whoop, what row? What happened? Oh no. I don't see my slides anymore. Oh, there we go. Thank you. Okay, we've got to just zip through these now. Sorry about that. So if Kate would come back, we're going to do a little taste of MI. And we're going to talk about vegetables again in our last 2 minutes, if that's okay. So Kate, why would you want to make a change in your vegetable intake?
I would like to make a change if I know it's healthier for me. I know that I would probably feel better if I ate a little bit better. So those.
Some of the reasons. So then I could try to do a reflection, right? So health is important to you, and you already believe that eating vegetables would improve your health.
Yeah, that's right.
So then I could ask her the next one, what are the 3 best reasons for you to do this? But she's already told us 2, and we're running out of time. So I might say, how important is it for you to make a change in your vegetable intake?
I think it's really important. I'm a mom now, so I want to be a good example for my kids and my family. So, that's definitely become much more important lately.
Wonderful. Well, congratulations, and I can tell it's also important for you to be a good parent and have a very healthy child and set some good habits. So what do you think, how might you go about this in order to succeed in changing vegetable intake?
I think one thing that I think I can do that would help is to, since I really want to have my kids eat well, that I would, as I'm preparing their food, whatever it might be, that, I make sure we eat together, and if I include, vegetables in all of our meals, then, I can model it, and it'll be just good practice and motivation for me, because I really want to make sure that my kids get their vegetables too.
Awesome. Yep. So you would feel more motivated being the role model and seeing them and exposing your children to vegetables and just doing this together as a family, it sounds like.
Yeah, definitely a lot more motivation than I'm just on my own or, sitting in my office at work.
Well, awesome. So we would continue having this conversation. And this next question where I say, what will you do, is inviting Kate to give me some commitment language. But I'm noticing it's now 12 o'clock or maybe 12:01. This is called a taste of MI because if you use this kind of format, you will be using MI. These are great open-ended questions designed to draw out change talk. If the person is really not there and they don't want to change their vegetable intake, then you probably have to back up a little bit and try to see what is it about their current eating that's working for them, and really try to see their perspective about it. But we try to go for change talk first. And so if you just use these questions right here, you would be doing an awesome job. And this is our taste of MI for today. And sorry we're running out of time. I just had a few more slides about your overall goals to decrease resistance, increase change talk, express your confidence that change is possible in a genuine way, and support their efforts. And just to know that your clients and patients are your best teacher. So if the patient's talking more than you are, that's a good sign that you're using MI. And the goal is to reflect more than you ask questions. And if you're going to ask questions, really try to use the open-ended questions and mainly avoid getting ahead of your patient's readiness level. And so if you feel like they're starting to be not on the same page, then think that maybe you got ahead or maybe some ambivalence came back up. Some resources here for you. Motivationalinterview.org has a ton of resources on there, including trainers. Our CASA website has my manual that's a Native American motivational interviewing manual. The ATTCs have a lot of information on there, and that has MIA Step, lots of MI training materials that are free. One Sky Center has an MI for Native American manual free, and then the CTN dissemination library as well. So just thank you all so much, and I wish you the best if you decide to try MI or get some more training. I hope this has been helpful to you.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Dr. Venner. And do you have a few moments if people have a couple of questions here? Or?
I'm absolutely fine, yes. I can stay a little bit. But I understand if people have to go.
Yeah, it looks like
oh, how wonderful. Okay, so Kendra is asking, Do I have some suggestions about how our offices should be decorated? I don't know if there's any should. It has to feel comfortable for you as well. You can do very simple things that will make your office seem more welcoming rather than just like a doctor's office, white, sterile. People change lighting with lamps. If you have any Native American art to put up, that would be wonderful. Sometimes I've seen people almost have like a little altar where they have different kind of items that would represent spirituality, and that sort of invites people to think in that realm. Flyers and pamphlets that are specific to Native Americans, information about Native American happenings. There's a lot of free posters, I believe, that talk about, not drinking during pregnancy and that are more like emphasizing the strengths of our culture.
Great. Yeah, it looks like that's all the questions we have for now. If there are any more questions, please type them in at this point, and then I'll just we'll have a couple more minutes. I'm going to give some final instructions. If you have a question, comment, type it in now, and then we will come back to that.
Hey, I think Gloria King's my buddy from down around here, so how fun. Yeah, so just remind me about my spirituality scale and I will send that out. I'd love any feedback anybody has on the spirituality scale as well, so ideas about how much it could be used in different, with different tribes.
Great. Yeah, I'll just give some final instructions here, and then if we have any other questions, we'll get back to that in just a moment.
Okay, wonderful, thank you.
So we'd ask that you stay online as we close out the webinar so you can be redirected to our survey. Also watch your email inbox for our follow-up, which will include a link to the recording of this webinar. And we'll also include a link to the survey, as I know some people have not been redirected to it. We hope you will join us again.
That didn't work.
And also on June 18th for group counseling. Thank you so much for participating today, and again I want to thank Dr. Venner for your expertise and just sharing a lot of wonderful interactive information with us today.
You're very welcome, my pleasure.
Alright, yeah, it looks like we don't have any other questions, so do you have anything else you wanted to finish up with, or are you all set, Dr. Venner?
Well, I think I'm all set for the time I have. I could go on and on for 2 days, so I just wish everyone luck if you think about trying this out in your practice or maybe getting a little more training and maybe helping each other out, because it sounded like a lot of you have had some training and about a third of you were using it in your practice regularly. So keep up the wonderful work, and thank you for what you're doing for our Native people.
Thanks so much, and yeah, thank you to everyone for joining us today, and we'll hopefully see you again at one of our next webinars.
Thanks, everybody. Bye.